Imagine giants so powerful that a single step destroys cities. Mythical beings designed to kill gods, who made Olympus and Asgard tremble. From the one who supports the sky to the one who burns the entire universe, these are the 10 most feared giants in mythology. Prepare for chaos because number 1 didn't just defy the gods. He won. This is the Immortals, where legends never die. Subscribe and take your place in the ranks of legends. Forget the heroes. These colossals weren't just immense. They were forces of chaos that brought the gods to their knees. Creatures capable of wiping out the world in a single blow. And today, you are finally going to meet them. Starting at number 10, we face the Mesopotamian sentinel, Humbaba, the guardian of the cedar forest. Imagine a giant so terrifying that his face was a pulsating mass of human intestines and serpents. In ancient Mesopotamia, Humbaba wasn't just a monster. He was the god's ultimate security system. He was a living nightmare designed to ensure that no human would ever cross the line between the mortal world and the sacred domains of the heavens. To look upon him was to gaze into the raw chaos of the cosmos, a sight so disturbing it could break a warrior's mind before the battle even began. Humbaba was a custom-made biological guardian, commissioned by the storm god, Enlil. His purpose was absolute: to protect the sacred cedar forest from human ambition. He was an entity composed of Melamu, a terrifying divine radiance. In Mesopotamian lore, Melamu is a physical force that paralyzes the soul. Humbaba was draped in 7 distinct layers of this aura, making him a walking disaster zone of divine energy. He was the engineered boundary between the known world and the forbidden, a sentinel whose very existence was a death sentence for the unworthy. He was the jailer of the gods, programmed to destroy anything that threatened the divine order. Humbaba's power was a masterclass in environmental warfare. Ancient tablets describe his roar as a literal flood, a sonic blast so powerful it could drown entire armies. His breath was fire, and his mouth was a vent for volcanic smoke. He possessed the raw strength to uproot millennia-old cedars with a single hand, to use them as clubs. He didn't just fight, he altered the atmosphere. His presence turned the forest air into a lethal poison that rotted the lungs of mortals and turned the landscape into a deadly labyrinth. Every step he took resonated with a frequency capable of disintegrating the will of those in his path. The most shocking fact is that Humbaba was technically unbeatable. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the protagonist stood no chance in a fair fight. Gilgamesh only survived because the god Shamash cheated, unleashing 13 divine hurricanes to pin the giant down and blind his 7 auras. Without this divine hack, the greatest hero in history would have been erased in seconds. Humbaba did not lose to a man. He was only brought down when the gods themselves tilted the scales of fate. At number 9, we meet the Greek champion, Antaeus, the earthbound wrestler. Deep in the scorching deserts of ancient Libya, there lived a giant who possessed the ultimate cheat code for immortality. He was a champion wrestler who had never lost a single match, not because of his technique, but because he was literally invincible as long as his feet touched the ground. Imagine an opponent who doesn't just recover from your strikes, but grows stronger every time you knock him down. This was Antaeus, the guardian of the sands, a monster who turned the act of wrestling into a ritual of mass execution. Antaeus was the son of 2 of the most powerful forces in existence: Poseidon, the god of the seas, and Gaia, the primordial personification of the earth itself. He was a colossal predator who viewed every traveler as a sacrifice. He forced every stranger who crossed his lands into a wrestling match to the death. His goal was as gruesome as it was ambitious. He was collecting the skulls of his defeated victims to build a temple in honor of his father. For Antaeus, the earth wasn't just a place to stand. It was his literal source of divinity. The true power of Antaeus lay in his infinite stamina. Because Gaia was his mother, the earth acted as a biological battery for his life force. He could be crushed, stabbed, or his bones shattered, But the moment any part of his body made contact with the soil, Gaia would pump endless strength back into his veins. In a fight, he was a perpetual motion machine of destruction. He would deliberately let himself be thrown to the ground just to recharge, rising each time with renewed fury and doubled strength, making him a nightmare that no mortal warrior could ever hope to exhaust. This is the only giant in history that forced the legendary Heracles to abandon brute force and actually use his intellect. During his 11th labor, Heracles realized that every time he slammed Antaeus down, the earth practically healed the giant instantly. In a brilliant move of tactical genius, Heracles locked the giant in a crushing bear hug and hoisted him high into the air. He held him suspended, feeling Antaeus' legs kick desperately for a single grain of sand until his divine life force simply drained away. Antaeus died not because he was overpowered, but because he was disconnected from his source, proving that even the most indestructible giants have a breaking point if you can cut their roots. For the 8th spot, we uncover the mystery of the Nephilim, the fallen hybrids. They were the celebrity monsters of the ancient world, half angel, half human, and so violent that God decided to restart the entire planet just to get rid of them. The Nephilim were not just giants, they were a glitch in the cosmic order. They were the mighty men of old, beings of such terrifying power and charisma that they shifted the course of human history into a nightmare of blood and dominance. They represent the moment where the celestial and the terrestrial collided to create something that should have never existed. Their origin is found in the most mysterious passages of the Bible and the Book of Enoch. They were born from a forbidden union, the sons of God. Fallen angels known as Watchers descended to earth to take human wives. This was more than a sin. It was a biological corruption of the world's DNA. The result was a hybrid race known as the Fallen Ones. They possessed the immense physical frame of giants combined with the ancient intellect of their angelic fathers, making them an apex predator that humanity had no hope of controlling. The Nephilim were the architects of the impossible. Their strength was matched only by their insatiable hunger. Ancient texts suggest that after consuming all of humanity's labor, they turned on mankind to eat their flesh and drink their blood. They were cannibalistic demigods who spread a level of wickedness that infected the very earth. Their physical presence was so massive they could alter landscapes, and their intelligence allowed them to build civilizations that defied the natural limits of the age. The true scale of their power is revealed in why they are no longer here. Ancient interpretations suggest the Nephilim were the primary reason for the Great Flood. They weren't just big, they were a cosmic cancer so powerful they threatened to replace humanity. Noah's Ark wasn't just a rescue mission for animals. It was a biological escape from a world ruled by these predatory hybrids. The flood was a divine hard reset, a global exorcism required to drown a race of giants that was too strong to be killed by any mortal army. Coming in at number 7 is the thief of Asgard, Thrym, king of the ice Jotnar. What kind of giant is brave enough to walk into Asgard and steal the most powerful weapon in the universe? Meet Thrym, the king of the Jotnar. While most monsters tremble at the mere mention of the god of thunder, Thrym did the unthinkable. He struck at the heart of the gods and left them completely defenseless. He wasn't just a brute. He was a strategic powerhouse who turned the gods' greatest strength into his personal leverage, proving that even a deity is nothing without their tools. Thrym was the sovereign ruler of the frost giants in Jotunheimr, the chaotic realm that stands against Asgard. He represented the freezing, unstoppable power of the winter wilderness, a force that doesn't just break you, but slowly consumes everything in its path. In the Norse cosmos, the frost giants were the ancient enemies of the gods, representing raw forces of nature that existed long before Odin carved the world. Thrym stood as their pinnacle, a king with the ambition to humiliate the Aesir and claim their most precious treasures as his own. His greatest feat wasn't a battle, but a heist that redefined the power balance of the 9 realms. Thrym is the only being in Norse mythology to successfully kidnap Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. This was a cosmic catastrophe. Thrym took the hammer and buried it 8 miles deep underground, beneath the frozen earth of Jotunheimr. He knew that Mjolnir was the only thing keeping the giants at bay. By hiding it, he effectively held the entire world hostage, making it clear that the hammer would only return if the gods met his impossible demands, showcasing a level of audacity that no other giant dared to display. Thrym's power forced the gods into a desperate, humiliating plan. He demanded the goddess Freya as his wife. The situation was so dire that Thor, the fiercest warrior in existence, had to dress up as a bride to infiltrate Thrym's hall. The giant was so blinded by his triumph that he didn't notice the bride ate an entire ox and 3 barrels of mead in one sitting. Thrym's reign ended in blood once Thor regained his hammer, but he remains the only giant who forced the god of thunder to win through disguise rather than strength. In 6th place, we find the immovable mountain, Alcyoneus, the unconquerable giant. How do you kill a giant who literally cannot die as long as he is standing in his own home? This was the King Kong of Greek mythology, a living mountain that made the Olympian gods look like ants. Alcyoneus wasn't just another monster in the ranks of the giants. He was a walking fortress, a biological anomaly that turned the gods' own world against them. He represented the ultimate frustration for the divine, a creature whose power was rooted so deeply in the earth that even lightning and divine steel were rendered useless. Alcyoneus was the eldest and most formidable of the giants, a race of colossal beings born from the blood of Uranus when it struck the earth. His birth was no accident. He was engineered by Gaia specifically to destroy Zeus and avenge the fall of the Titans. He was the absolute nemesis of the Olympians, a being designed to be the ultimate god-killer. Unlike the Titans, who were distant divine figures, Alcyoneus was a raw, physical manifestation of the Earth's fury, standing as the supreme leader of the uprising, known as the Gigantomachy. His sheer physical scale was beyond comprehension. Alcyoneus was known for his ability to pluck entire mountains from the ground and hurl them like pebbles. During the Great War against the gods, he didn't just fight, he decimated divine armies. It was said that his skin was so thick and his hide so dense that the legendary weapons of the gods, even the arrows of Heracles, would simply bounce off him without leaving a scratch. He was a force of pure, immovable weight that threatened to crush the very foundations of Mount Olympus under his massive feet. The true terror of Alcyoneus was his mystical life insurance policy. He was granted absolute immortality, but with a specific condition. He was invincible as long as he remained within his birthplace, the land of Pallene, no matter how many times Heracles struck him down or pierced his heart. The moment Alcyoneus touched the soil of his home, his wounds would close instantly, and his strength would return tenfold. He was a perpetual engine of war. To finally kill him, Heracles had to abandon his weapons and physically drag the screaming giant across the border into a foreign land, where his immortality finally withered away, proving that even a mountain can fall if you move it from its base. At number 5, we witness the deadly gaze of Balor, the one-eyed apocalypse. Forget about sci-fi laser beams or high-tech weapons. In ancient Celtic mythology, there was a giant who possessed an eye that functioned as a biological nuclear bomb. He was a creature of such devastating power that his mere gaze didn't just injure, it erased existence itself. This was Balor of the Fierce Eye, the ultimate personification of drought, blight, and total destruction. In a world of swords and sorcery, Balor was the apex predator, a king whose vision was a death sentence for entire civilizations and the very land they stood upon. Balor was the terrifying king of the Fomorians, a race of chaotic, monstrous giants who plagued ancient Ireland from the dark depths of the sea. But Balor wasn't just a king. He was a dark legend. According to myth, he gained his terrible power after spying on his father's druids as they brewed a magical poison. The fumes from the cauldron entered his eye, transforming it into a conduit of pure, concentrated death. This made him the most feared entity in the Celtic pantheon, an old god of chaos who stood as the direct grandfather and greatest enemy of the sun god Lugh. Balor's true power did not reside in his colossal muscles, but in the lethal mechanism of his right eye. His eyelid was so massive and heavy that it required 7 servants using iron hooks just to lift it during battle. However, once that lid was raised, the results were apocalyptic. His gaze didn't just kill men, it incinerated entire armies in seconds, boiled the oceans until they turned to salt, and burned the very earth so deeply that no plant could ever grow there again. He was a weapon of mass destruction that turned lush landscapes into scorched, eternal wastelands. The most terrifying detail about Balor was the catastrophic nature of his power. He was a tactical nightmare that had to be kept isolated until the precise moment of annihilation. However, his own destruction was the ultimate irony. During the battle, the hero Lugh delivered a perfect strike, a slingstone to the pupil, with such force that Balor's eye was driven through the back of his head. The apocalyptic gaze, now facing backward, instantly erased his own Fomorian army. Balor remains the most chilling example of a giant whose power wasn't just physical, but a literal force of nature that could end the world with a single blink. Rising to number 4, we behold the cosmic strength of Atlas, the Titan bearing the heavens. We often see him in statues or logos holding a small globe on his back, but that is a massive historical error. Atlas doesn't hold the earth. He holds the entire weight of the universe on his shoulders to prevent the sky from crushing you to death. He is not just a strong man, he is the structural foundation of reality. Without his eternal struggle, the stars, the planets, and the heavens would collapse into the world below, ending all of existence in a single heartbeat of cosmic failure. Atlas was a second-generation Titan, the son of Iapetus and Clymene, and the brother of Prometheus. During the Titanomachy, the great war for the throne of the cosmos, Atlas was the field commander who led the charge against the Olympian gods. He was the strongest and most dangerous of his kind. When the Titans were finally defeated, Zeus did not send Atlas to the abyss of Tartarus like the others. Instead, Zeus devised a punishment that was far more brutal. He condemned Atlas to stand at the edge of the world forever, serving as the living pillar that separates the earth from the sky. His physical strength is, quite literally, the greatest in all of Greek mythology. Unlike other giants who lift mountains, Atlas lifts the celestial sphere. This is a feat of stamina that has lasted for millennia. He is the ultimate stabilizer. If his muscles flinched for even a second, the friction between the heavens and the earth would incinerate the atmosphere. He represents the raw, unyielding power of endurance, a being whose every breath supports the weight of every star and galaxy known to the ancient Greeks. Today, many still underestimate his true scale. Ancient descriptions claim that his feet were rooted in the very center of the world, while his head reached far beyond the clouds, touching the edge of the void. He is the only giant who ever made the legendary Heracles feel true, paralyzing fear. When Heracles briefly took the weight of the sky so Atlas could retrieve the golden apples, the hero felt his bones begin to vaporize and his spirit crumble under the pressure. Heracles, the strongest man to ever live, realized in those few minutes that Atlas was on a level of power that no god or hero could ever truly comprehend. Entering the top 3 at number 3 is the nightmare of Olympus, Typhon, father of all monsters. He is the father of all monsters, and the only being in existence that made the mighty Olympian gods flee in absolute terror, hiding in Egypt disguised as helpless animals. Typhon wasn't just a challenger to the throne. He was a cosmic reset button designed to erase the age of gods and replace it with an era of eternal darkness. When he marched toward Mount Olympus, the foundations of the universe trembled. For this was not a mere giant, but a living apocalypse that even Zeus, the king of thunder, feared to face alone. Typhon was the ultimate creation of Gaia and Tartarus, born from the deepest, most chaotic pits of the underworld. He was a living nightmare of impossible proportions, From his hips down, he was a mass of massive coiling vipers, while 100 dragon heads sprouted from his shoulders, each screaming with the voices of wild animals and gods. His eyes flashed with lethal lightning, and his breath was a torrent of hungry fire. He was engineered by the earth itself to be the final judge of the Olympians, a being so vast that his head brushed the stars every time he stood upright. His power nearly succeeded in erasing the Greek pantheon from history. In his climactic battle against Zeus, Typhon did the unthinkable. He didn't just fight the king of the gods, he dismantled him. Typhon managed to overpower Zeus, ripping the tendons and sinews from the god's arms and legs, leaving the ruler of the heavens as a helpless, motionless sack of flesh in a dark cave. No other giant or titan in history ever came this close to a total victory. He proved that even the immortality of the gods could be broken by raw, primordial violence, almost ending the reign of Olympus before it had truly begun. The scale of Typhon's body was so immense that when he extended his arms, he could touch the east and the west at the same time, covering the entire horizon in shadow. But the most terrifying fact is that Typhon is not dead. After a battle that scarred the earth, Zeus finally managed to bury him under Mount Etna. According to legend, the monster is still alive today, trapped beneath miles of rock. Every time the volcano erupts, throwing ash and lava into the sky, it isn't just a natural event, it is Typhon, the father of monsters, shifting his weight because his back itches, reminding the world that the terror of Olympus is merely sleeping. At number 2, we face the origin of existence Ymir, the progenitor of the giants. He didn't just live in the world, he is the world. Every breath you take, the ground you walk upon, and the very bones in your body are nothing more than the processed remains of this colossal entity. Ymir was not just a giant, he was the raw material of reality itself. To understand his power is to understand that the entire universe as we know it is built upon the corpse of a single, infinite being who existed before time, before gods, and before the stars themselves began to shine. Ymir was the first living creature to emerge from the void of Ginnungagap, the vast emptiness between the realms of fire and ice. Long before Odin or the other gods were born, Ymir was formed where the heat of Muspelheim met the frost of Niflheim. He was a primordial force of nature, a hermaphroditic giant who contained the seeds of all life within his massive frame. As he slept, his body became a biological factory, manifesting life from his own sweat and the very warmth of his skin, giving birth to the first generation of Jötnar, the frost giants. His power was the power of pure, unadulterated creation. Ymir's strength was not measured in what he could lift, but in what he could generate. His size was so infinite that he occupied the entirety of the cosmic void. He was so powerful that Odin and his brothers, Vili and Ve, realized that the only way to create a stable universe was to commit the first murder in history. They had to combine their divine powers to slay him, not because he was evil, but because his raw, chaotic growth was too massive for the cosmos to contain. His death was the most violent and transformative event in Norse mythology. The scale of Ymir's existence is best revealed in the moment of his death. When Odin struck him down, the blood that gushed from Ymir's wounds was so massive in volume that it caused a universal flood of gore, drowning almost the entire race of giants he had created. From his shattered body, the gods crafted the world. His flesh became the earth, his broken bones became the mountains, and his teeth became the rocks. His skull was hoisted up to form the dome of the sky, and his eyebrows were used to build the walls of Midgard to protect humanity. Today, we still walk on his skin and sail on his blood, living within the monumental skeleton of the first giant. And finally, at number 1, the one who ends it all, Surtr, the executioner of worlds. If Ymir was the beginning of everything, Surtr is the absolute end. He does not seek to rule the world, nor does he care for the petty squabbles of gods and men. His only objective is to set the entire universe on fire and watch until every star and every soul is reduced to ash. Surtr is not just a giant. He is the inevitable expiration date of reality. He is the shadow at the end of the tunnel, the cosmic executioner who has been waiting in the dark since the dawn of time for the moment. He is allowed to destroy everything. Surtr is the ancient sovereign of Muspelheim, the primordial realm of fire. He is one of the oldest beings in existence, predating even the gods of Asgard. Since the beginning of the cosmos, he has sat at the edge of his burning kingdom, leaning on his blade and staring into the void, waiting for the signal of Ragnarok. He is the guardian of the southern heat, a being of pure, unadulterated flame, who represents the heat death of the universe. In Norse mythology, he is the ultimate contrast to the gods of order, a force of entropy that cannot be bargained with or escaped. Surtr possesses the Surtalogi, a flaming sword that shines brighter than the sun and carries the heat of a collapsing star. During the final battle of Ragnarok, Surtr will march across the Bifrost Bridge, shattering it under his weight. He will face the god Freyr in a cataclysmic duel and emerge victorious. His greatest feat of strength, however, is not a duel, but the final act of the war. Surtr will hurl his sword across the 9 worlds, unleashing a fire so intense that it will incinerate the world tree Yggdrasil itself. He is the only being powerful enough to burn the very fabric of the multiverse. The most terrifying fact about Surtr is that, unlike every other giant on this list, Surtr actually wins. In the prophecy of the end times, almost everyone, gods, giants, and monsters, falls in battle. But Surtr fulfills his function as the ultimate cosmic cleaner. He survives the chaos just long enough to ensure that the old, corrupted world is completely purified by fire. He is the full stop at the end of history's sentence. Once the universe is nothing but embers, Surtr vanishes, having cleared the path for a new world to rise from the ashes. He is the champion of the end, the giant who gets the last word in the story of existence. These giants changed the fate of worlds. Subscribe for more mythology and comment which Colossus was your favorite. Now, if you want to see more legendary beings, click here for the top 10 most powerful dragons in mythology.